Yo, what's going on, everybody? Hope everyone's having an amazing day, and welcome back to the Duenkel Productions Podcast. This will be episode number 27. We have had a lot of great podcasts over the past week and a half. A lot of great podcasts throughout this whole gig since October of 2020. Thank you for everyone that's been a part of it. Our numbers are through the roof in the past month. I greatly appreciate it. Our watch time is 500% better than it was 28 days ago. Our views were about 250% better than they were 28 days ago. We have eclipsed 50 subscribers, so big shout out to everyone that subscribed. And this one I think is going to be a lot of fun as well. As you guys can see, got my boy Pat Pete. You know, a lot of people don't know this. I'm actually a big Pat Pete fan. But also just to look ahead for you guys. Coming up on the channel, we're going to be doing some mini podcast episodes. That'll be called the Duenkel Productions Fastest 4 Minutes. So be on the lookout for those. They're going to be a lot of fun. But today is all about episode number 27 with the man Mason Gress, a Ravens fan, a man that I think one day is going to be a head scout for some NFL team. To tell you the truth, maybe the Baltimore Ravens. Heck, he might even get in with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But whatever. How you doing? Keep it moving. But Mason, how are you today, buddy?
Good.
Yeah, you excited to talk some off
Yeah.
season, man? I know this is like your bread and butter.
Always.
You love all the trades, the rumors, the draft. You love all that stuff. So I'm sure it'll be a lot of
Yeah.
fun. But what's kind of caught your eye so far? From the rumors, from what's happened so far, obviously we had that huge Matthew Stafford trade. JJ Watt got released. Pat Pete and the Cardinals are parting ways. What has been the thing that's really jumped out to you?
Honestly, it's the lack of a Deshaun Watson trade, really. That they're holding out still on that. Like that surprises me that it's gonna happen, but yet the Texans are acting like it won't happen. And it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time.
Right, yeah, and
And it surprises me that they're just like not trying to make the move.
yeah, it really does. It does surprise me. And you know what, Mason, they could get huge compensation for Deshaun Watson. Obviously the
Yes.
Jets, the Dolphins, the 49ers are all rumored in that Deshaun Watson race. And I think when you look at what these teams have to offer, the Jets having the number two overall pick is huge. The Dolphins having the third pick in the draft, the 49ers having the 12th pick, and a lot of young talent um, that they could also trade away. So I think it'll be really interesting to see when this Deshaun Watson deal gets done. And I think honestly, Mason, I think this JJ Watt being released kind of is going to tip that over the iceberg, and that's going to eventually happen here in probably the next week or two, if I had to guess.
That's a good point. I feel like it'll speed it up because they knew both were gonna leave.
Yeah, I mean, and when you talk about the Texans too, they're really a team that just needs a restart. Traded DeAndre Hopkins, obviously, released JJ Watt. They've really made some insane moves over the past few years, trading away, star players, and it's really interesting to see. And I thought once that DeAndre Hopkins trade happened, I sat back and I was telling people kind of that I talked to about football a lot of. I'm like, hey, don't be surprised if Deshaun Watson wants out of there in the next year or two. I know Bill O'Brien and him didn't really get along. I don't think Bill O'Brien really got along with many people in that Texans organization. So I think they'll trade Deshaun. I've said it from the start. I think he's going to end up going to the Jets. And I've also heard that the Panthers are a rumored team to get Sam Darnold. That's what I've been hearing as well.
I To add to that, I've been telling anyone that would listen to me too that I almost knew the second Bill O'Brien got fired, that JJ and Deshaun Watson would not be on the team the next year. Because like I was just telling a friend of mine today, I was like, you can't keep those guys on the team when they have that many voices and that much of an opinion, and bring in a new guy and expect that new guy to have some kind of power. The players have more leverage than the coach does at that point, and you can't keep those guys around.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree, Mason. And I think this offseason too, man, it's going to be really interesting. Because as we mentioned, there's a lot of quarterback movement. We also don't know the cap number, which I think is going to be a huge thing in this free agent process. Whether it
Definitely.
is whether it's the exact same as last season, which I believe was 175. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But it's
I
been
honestly don't remember for sure.
it's been rumored in that 185 to 195 range, and
Yes.
if that's closer to 185, it's going to be a huge difference. But if it's closer to 195, I think you're going to see a lot more guys kind of staying put type deal, because they're going to do
Mm,
restructure, and also contract extensions are very helpful when trying to minimize the cap. That is why I think you see a lot of good young players are going to get extensions this year. One of the guys I actually had my eye on getting an extension this season is probably Jair Alexander, and I believe your guy Mason Lamar Jackson will also get an extension, or they will
yeah.
try and work something out this offseason. But I want to throw it to you though. I want to ask, what are you kind of looking for the Ravens to do this offseason? I feel like, we've obviously talked a lot about this. I think we both feel like they need a receiver, and some O-line for sure. I think that's the one common two items that we've talked about. But what kind of moves do you see them making?
Can I throw it back to two other things you talked at quick for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
My pick for Watson is still Denver. I really believe it's going to be Denver. Uh, I just think that team's more complete, and they're a quarterback away from being a playoff team. And he knows some of the guys that have been on that are on that team. He's friends with them. I still think that's my pick. And like you've pointed out in the past, New England still isn't out of the picture
Yep.
because Belichick just has a way of doing whatever he wants to do, really, and make things happen. Uh, and then when you point out with the cap room, another thing, I think that'll play a lot in the moves. The less amount of cap room, the more moves. Teams will either look to turn stuff into bonuses and clear cap room up with bigger name players, or straight out let go of them. I've seen a lot of people say that this will be the offseason with the most amount of moves, probably like in a long time. Because those guys that are getting paid a lot of money, they're either going to be valued for their cap or they're gone. Because people need to make moves. And also, 13 teams over the cap really doesn't help.
No, not at all.
Projected cap, that's pretty awful.
Yeah, it's
I don't think I've ever seen that many teams over the projected cap.
No, well, and it's surprising, like you've been saying, it's so surprising that this is gonna have an impact on what happens in 2, 3, 4 years as well. Because you think about all these guys, all these big names moving around, they're then once their contracts are over, then it's gonna be more movement around as well. And I do think that the salary cap is going to play a huge part. And I think it's honestly quite interesting that we don't have the number yet. I think it's kind of surprising that
It's
we
true.
don't have a number.
One thing I also want to point out, you was talking about re-signing people. I
Hmm.
think that'll happen, but teams are going to find a way to compensate those players for more money down the line. They're going to find additional ways to compensate those players because, like, Lamar's not going to sign for a relatively cheap deal when he knows the market's really bad this year.
Right.
So he knows he can make more money down the line. So he's going to find a way to get that. So contract negotiations, I think, will be more complex in that
Hmm.
aspect that teams want cap room now, players want to be paid now. It's going to be a lot harder to resign people, really, because of that, unless somehow the team finds a way to compensate them later on.
Yeah,
So you're really going to see who wants to win and who doesn't, really. Like if players want to win and they want to get to the Super Bowl, they're going to be more relaxed on their money. Like a guy like JJ is going to be interesting because he's going to go to a contender, and he's probably going to take a massive pay cut just so he can get on a contender.
Yeah, I think the two teams right now for JJ Watt, and this is what I've been hearing all throughout the league. I think it's Green Bay or Pittsburgh. Those are the two that really make the most sense. I obviously know that Pittsburgh's got cap issues, but I could definitely see that being an intriguing option for JJ and also Green Bay, and we'll see where else. But I think right now those are the two that you look at and say, because I know that his plays soccer in Chicago, and it's I think like a 2.5 hour drive from his hometown of Pewaukee and like 3.5 from Lambeau. So that's intriguing. And then obviously Pittsburgh because of his brothers. It'll be interesting to see. I also heard Mason Joe Thuney, Patriots and him haven't agreed to a deal yet. Looking like free agency, and he's gonna want to get paid too because he's been one of the better guards in the league over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I know you're going to think I'm pretty obvious for picking it, but I wouldn't be surprised if either one became a Raven either. Because the Ravens are known to pay aging players money to get them on the team. But I do like Green Bay as a pick. I think him going home or him going with his brothers to Pittsburgh. I just think if he goes to Pittsburgh, he's going to have to play for next to nothing. He's really going to have to take a pay cut. I mean, Pouncey retiring today, Pouncey brothers retiring, that'll clear up cap room for Pittsburgh in that regard. But I still think they have a lot of work. And Big Ben did say he'd play for literally nothing next year, pretty much.
Yeah,
I don't know if
and
you heard that, but
yeah, I have been hearing that. I think that right now, Mason, we really have to find out what the cap number is because I think that is going to
yeah,
determine where JJ goes. I will say that I think Green Bay is probably the team um with probably one of the best shots to get him because they don't have to
yes.
clear a super big amount of cap room. I think they have to clear like 18 to 21 million or something like that if I was reading correctly. And I think that they would be able to make it work with restructuring guys, giving more signing bonuses. I think you're going to see Green Bay. I think you're going to see a lot of guys take pay cuts, want to restructure contracts because, they were one win away from the Super Bowl, and they know that if they get a couple players, they have a good shot next year as well. And
Yeah.
Tampa's a team to look out for as well. They
Oh, that's true. I like that one.
Brady, Gronkowski, all those guys are saying they'll take pay cuts. I actually think that though that Tampa they're going to be tough to fit everyone kind of under the cap though because it came out today that Shaq Barrett wants a truckload of money, and I mean
Mm-hmm.
Shaq Barrett's a really really good player, so I will be surprised if Tampa does not re-sign him. And I think that could put him in a little bit of a cap situation, depending on what
Agreed.
the number is.
Uh, but I read today the only prediction, my bad, for JJ's number was someone said 2 years, 9 million was the cheapest or the average they expected him to get paid. But
Yeah,
that's just a quick, someone off Instagram, not anyone official.
yeah. I was reading somewhere
Uh,
like I was reading somewhere that like a lot of people were kind of the people that like look at the cap and stuff like that and try and fit numbers. They would say he's probably looking at like 4 mil in money and then 2 to 3 mil in signing bonuses, something around that 6 to 7 range, which I mean, hey, if Green Bay can figure out a way to do it, I would. But I'll tell you, it's the guy I want my team to go after is this man right here, Pat Pete, man. I want that guy on the team. He'd help us out so much. But Mason,
yeah.
Baltimore Ravens. I know that you want a receiver on that team. You think that they need one. So who are you going after? Who you think they're gonna pick up and sign?
I honestly, from the start, I think it's Allen Robinson. He keeps liking posts of Lamar's and Raven-related posts to Baltimore, and I know guys do that, and I mean, you look at the past, Le'Veon Bell's done that crap with the Ravens, and other players have, but I don't know. I just think that's a good fit. He's a good, sure-handed receiver, in my opinion, and he wants to win, and the Ravens need the receiver. They really
Yeah,
have 3 to 4 big needs, in my opinion. You need an offensive line, a receiver, edge rushers, and probably a more aggressive safety. That's
yeah.
really the 4 things I would say they need down that team.
Allen Robinson, I think, would be a good fit. Mason, obviously knowing you, for the couple years that we've known each other, I've started watching the Ravens more. And what really the two things that really stood out to me this year was the offensive line really stood out to me. They had some rough spots this season, especially at center. Matt Skirta early in the season was not great. I know Makari filled in there and did not do a bad job, but I think offensive lineman is
He's still
definitely.
screwed up in the playoffs, though.
Yeah, yeah, and I think
He
I
had that
think
bad snap in the playoffs, which screwed him over.
right, yeah, and I think that
So
that's going to be a big thing that they're going to look for. Allen Robinson, I agree with you. I think is going to be a good fit. I will say though, I think Godwin's also an option for you guys as well. Because the thing about me with Allen Robinson is he's always a guy that seems to want to stick it to the team that kind of let him down. I could see him maybe sticking around the NFC North, going to Green Bay. I could also see him possibly going to. It's been rumored that he might want to go back to Jacksonville. I wouldn't think that's a bad fit either. Get to play with
yeah,
Trevor Lawrence, the number one pick, and I think a lot of guys are going to want to play for Urban Meyer. He's a good coach, hard worker, makes guys work hard. So I could definitely see him going back there. But I agree with that on the Ravens. I think Robinson and I think Godwin's another outside shot if he doesn't re-sign in Tampa Bay. I think
I
I
think
think
he's going back to Tampa, though.
yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
that's the main reason Mike Evans said he'd take a pay cut was to get Godwin back because that makes him a better player because he
yeah,
doesn't have all the, people on him.
right, yeah, that's a fair point.
So I think that's really why he's like, I'll take the pay cut.
Right. And I mean, hey, Godwin, if he wants to go back there too, he's going to have to take a little bit less as well. He's probably not going to get
Yeah,
his full value of contract. So it'll be really interesting. And I think, with Tampa Bay, they're coming off a Super Bowl win. Why not keep that intact and run it back? Like the Chiefs are saying last year. But um, Mason, I wanted to ask you, man, what were your thoughts on like the Super Bowl? Like I know that we kind of talked briefly about it, but Tampa Bay routed Kansas City, and I don't think either of us saw that happening. So what was the big thing in that
no.
game that stood out to you?
On the offensive line, honestly, I think when you take away your tackles, that I think that really screwed it up. And then, like I've told some people, like Andy Reid should have been in more than 5-man protection if he knew his tackles weren't going to be his true starters. I don't know. I feel like that's something he really messed up on.
Yeah, I mean
Like that's the big thing for me.
we said it on the post game, and going into this game, Mason, I thought, all right, I'm taking Mahomes. I'm taking the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they've been really good all season. I know they've kind of had their down moments, but when the lights are on them, they shine the brightest. And I really thought for me, what was impressive was how they dominated Buffalo. I thought that game would be a lot closer than it
Yeah,
was. And I thought that really jumped out to me. And yes, obviously losing Eric Fisher late in that game was huge. But I thought, Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, two of the best offensive minds in football, they'd be able to work around that. Like, I was connected to in the NFC Championship game. I'm in the Packers didn't have Bakhtiari, and that offense still plays a pretty good game. Not a great game, but a good game. And I felt like the Chiefs, they had one of their worst games I've ever seen them play. And it was funny because even at halftime, it was 21-6. And I think, Mason, you can agree with me on this. I'm like, I wouldn't count the Chiefs out. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I've seen them score 24 points in like that before. I mean, yes, it was against the Texans. It's not Tom Brady, but I mean, still, you put up 24 points in a span of like 3-4 minutes in a playoff game. That's pretty impressive. And I wasn't really surprised. In fact, early on in the game, I actually texted one of my buddies and I was like, uh, I think Tampa Bay is gonna win this game. And he's like, dude, it's only the first quarter. I'm like, I'm not saying the Chiefs don't have a chance to come back, but I'm saying Tampa's gonna win this game because they can't protect Mahomes. Unless they change up their whole protection in the second half, Kansas City's not winning this football game.
sure.
I mean, but Mason, let's talk about this now. Matthew Stafford trade. Your thoughts on it? Where do you think the Rams sit in the NFC right now?
I feel like they're better than where they were at because Stafford's a better quarterback than Golf. But if they don't win a Super Bowl within the next like 2 years or so, that's one of the worst trades ever. It's pretty straightforward on that. Like you either win the Super Bowl or you don't. You look really bad for giving up that many picks for a guy that didn't get any farther than Golf. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's for me too. Like it was surprising that they traded Golf because Mason, after that Packer game, like Sean McVay's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be an open quarterback competition, and I was a little surprised because I'm like, Golf came back off of 12 days from a broken thumb injury, played a really good game against Seattle. Led that team to a victory. I don't think he played a great game, but I think he played a good game considering he's dealing with a broken thumb. And then you go to Green Bay, which I mean, up until the NFC Championship game was, in a lot of people's eyes, the best team in the league. So I think that there's really no shame in losing that game, especially when Aaron Donald's not 100%. And Jared Goff's not 100%. But I do agree with you. I mean, they got to win the Super Bowl now. Like, I mean, if they don't, it's a failure. And honestly, Mason, I don't think they will. Like, I would take Kansas City.
a lot
I
of
would
teams, yeah.
I would take Tampa. I would take Green Bay. I would take Baltimore. And I would probably heck, I think look out for the Cleveland Browns this year. I'm telling you. The Cleveland Browns, man, look out for them. I think that Baltimore and Cleveland is going to be a fun matchup going into next season. I think those are going to be the top two teams in the AFC North.
I think I'd even take Seattle over them.
Yeah, I mean, Seattle's a tough one for me because they haven't lived up to their expectations the last couple of years. Especially this season. I mean, I thought for sure they would beat the Rams, and they didn't. I
Yeah,
picked
same.
the Rams. I picked the Rams because in those division games, I just kind of go with my gut. And my gut was telling me Rams, but I figured Seattle would play a lot better than they did, and I think that's concerning. And now Russell Wilson's voicing his frustrations, and I think, Mason, you can agree with me on this. Russell Wilson isn't going to get traded this season. Um, quarterbacks have
Yeah,
issues.
unless there's really the only chance is if there's really that much friction in the organization. But I just don't know who you go to. Wilson's a top 10, but worst top 10 quarterback. I'd say closer to top five though. And if you're really going to say you want to go away from him, I just don't know where you go.
Yeah,
The only other quarterback I guess they could go for is if they're somehow going to flip him for Watson. That's the only thing they could really do to make that seem like a reasonable move.
yeah. I mean, but
And even
even
then, I still feel like Wilson's better.
I think those guys are about equal. I would say those guys are about equal.
I'd give Wilson a slight edge,
That's fair.
just a little bit,
I
because
mean,
he's more consistent in the playoffs and stuff.
right. Well, I think too part of it is Deshaun. I don't think has had the teams that Russell's had either. So I think
Yeah,
if he goes
well,
to a
agreed.
team, if he goes to a team like Denver or Miami, and he's predicted to make the playoffs. You know what I mean? He's got to get that job done. He's got to
Yeah,
try and win a playoff game. Like I think that that's the question always with quarterbacks is who's better, and it's all about the team. I mean, I was watching an interview with
yeah,
Tony Romo and Aaron Rodgers today, and Rodgers was talking about how it's 10 guys on offense with me, 11 guys on defense, and all the guys on special teams. It's a team game, and I would think that Seattle's been a lot better than Houston in the past couple seasons, especially. You go back
yeah.
to the Legion of Boom days with Earl, Cam, Bobby, Sherm, and Byron Maxwell and those boys.
Mhm.
But Mason, what
Definitely
do you
agreed.
what do you think the biggest move of this offseason will be? What do you think the biggest one's going to be? Biggest move?
I honestly still think it's going to be Watson. It's kind of like they say every year. It's when the dominoes fall and people start to see what's going to happen. And I think his trades he's going to really play an effect on where people go. Because I think he's the biggest name that is actually legitimately going to get traded. Like there's people who are rumored, and with the cap situation, more big names might get cut or traded, but he's the only one like everyone can like sit here and say, yeah, he'll be on a new team next year.
Yeah,
So
I
it's kind
agree.
of just like that.
I agree with that. I do. I think Deshaun's going to be the biggest move of this offseason. I will say though, I think there's definitely guys that if the cap has a problem, I think there's going to be a lot more guys that you could say would be bigger. But I really think Deshaun's in there, and I think Pat Pete's in there as well. I think wherever he goes, is going to be huge because I mean Mason, I watch a lot of football. You know this. I watch just about every game on Sunday. I'm usually busy
Mhm.
like wall to wall on Sunday watching football, and I watch that Sunday night game between the Seahawks and the Cardinals, and I watch Pat Pete lock down DK Metcalf. Like literally lock him down, and me and you think DK's a very good player. You've made the comparison to Calvin Johnson. We'll see. We'll see how kind of his career takes off from here. I think DK's got a lot of good things in store, but I think those are really the two names. But I think Deshaun's going to be the big move, and I will say too, man, if he goes to the Jets, I think the Jets are headed in the right direction. With Robert Saleh, I'm a big fan of his. Big Bob Saleh. That's what a lot of people call him. Runs the stadium before the game. That man that man is unbelievable. He brings the energy, and then you throw Deshaun Watson in there, and I think you're jump starting your future. If he goes to the Broncos too, I think that team's really interesting. Obviously, I think that's probably one of the tougher divisions now. That you talk about Kansas City, the emergence of Justin Herbert, and you still got the Raiders out there, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on them, but I think Derek Carr's starting to prove some people wrong, prove some doubters wrong, and I think it'll be interesting. But yeah, Watson's a great pick. And then most surprising move this offseason, Mason. Who would you say?
I honestly, at the top of my head, don't really know of a surprising one. Uh, because it's still so early. I think almost. I'm not 100% sure on that. I mean, I still feel like it'll probably be a different quarterback. Maybe the rumors of Luck coming back. That could, if that does happen, that would be very surprising. And I mean, people kind of heard about it, but it would still be pretty shocking to see him come back.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I think that's probably what I'm surprising. It's going to be an off season that's driven by quarterbacks, where they're going to go, who's going to move, who's not. I mean,
Yeah,
who's going to retire still? I mean, Breeze hasn't even officially retired yet.
I think
So,
he
I
will
mean,
though.
I'm pretty sure he's going to retire too, but it's like it's not official until it's official. And even
Yeah,
then, it's not official. Technically, players can come out of retirement like Gronk.
man,
So you never know.
in that Super Bowl, Mason, that was vintage Gronk, dude. That was vintage Gronkowski.
It was awesome to see him do that.
Yeah,
Honestly, though,
yeah, that was awesome. I mean, Mason, obviously I wish Green Bay was in there, but man, it was good to see Brady and Gronkowski, just dominate at their old age and
back together, yeah.
prove the doubters wrong. I think you're starting to see a lot of older players just dominate. I think you look at Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, I think he's getting up there in age. Just won his third MVP. Um, and you talk about Tom and you talk about LeBron and you talk about Ronaldo and Messi. And I mean, you talk about all these older guys that are getting up there in age that are just continue to dominate sports. And it's really great to see. But my most surprising move of the offseason is going to be Pat Pete to the Packers. And this is a Packer homer pick without question. Um, Mason, you know how much I love
That's fair.
cornerbacks. You know how much I love cornerbacks, dude. I talk about Gilmore all the time. Ramsey's my boy. Pat Pete is my dude. Sure, he's all right. He's a little crazy, but I think Pat Pete to the Packers is going to shake some things up. I think it's more because I think they're going to try and get that cap number to the highest possible dollar, and I think Green Bay is going to have a little more cap room, and I think Pat Pete's going to come in there and he's going to say, listen, um, he hasn't been in the playoffs since Carson Palmer's been there. Why not go play with the number one rated offense last season and play opposite Jair Alexander and I think honestly, if the Packers get Pat Pete, I think that puts them right back to where they were last year, right there on the edge of the Super Bowl. All they got to do is just finish the job, and man, I'd love to see him win. I'd love to see him make it. I'd love to see him win it too, but I would just love to see him make it because I'm sick of Tom dominating, dude. I really am. Like it's great, but I'm sick of it. And I know you echo me on that, but I mean, next year I think we're going to be treated to some fun teams. I think there's going to be a lot of good moves, a lot of new faces, and I think there's going to be a good amount of surprise teams next year. And Mason, I'll tell you this, man. A lot of hope for your Ravens going into next season. If they can get the pieces that they need, I think that they have a good shot of competing next year as well, possibly getting to that AFC Championship game and they'll probably have to beat my boy Patrick Mahomes, and also Drake from State Farm, boys. That's who the State Farm guy was. I know we were trying to predict that on the Sunday show. We were all wrong. Me, Cooper, Connor, and Jake were all wrong. It was Drake, and it's pretty funny. But Mason, top five teams going into 2021, 2022. Who you got?
Um, I want to touch on 2 points first, which will lead into kind of my top teams. I think.
Okay.
Uh, One, you talked about the Ravens earlier. I think I was following that one guy from ESPN, Jameson, is his first name. He said the last 3 years he's predicted two. Last 2 years he's predicted two moves or a move each year, and they've happened. Mark Ingram and then Calais. This year his predicted move is that Joe, the offensive guard from Patriots.
Joe Thuney.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I think that'd be kind of cool. They need to make their offensive line better. But I mean, like we've talked, I still think receiver is more important, but that offensive line definitely needs to be improved. And I also think, like to touch on your Patrick Peterson and JJ to Green Bay, I think honestly I think that's the teams that will benefit the most from this cap situation is teams that are in the top 10, the contender teams, because those guys will want to go to those teams and take pay cuts.
Right.
And if they're going to have to take a pay cut, they might as well go to a team that they're going to win with. which kind of leads to my top 10. I mean, I think I still gotta. I wouldn't necessarily put Tampa at number one, but I definitely think like 2 or 3. I put them in that range because you still got to give them credit. They're just defending champs. Until they lose, they're pretty much champs. That's how it works. I don't know. It's really hard to see. I'm the type of person where I like to bunch teams together and just kind of say, here's people I throw in my top 10 in no order, because it's harder to be like actually predicting who's gonna do what.
All right, just throw together like 5 teams in the top 5, like teams that you think are top 5 teams going into next year in no particular order.
I gotta give it. Tampa's got to be in there just because they're
Yep.
the defending champs. You can't root against them. I'd agree with KC. They're still incredibly talented. Green Bay is up there. Trying to think who was in the playoffs and who I think got better and who I think got worse.
Buffalo's in there.
I'm going to pick Baltimore at 5 to 10 range. There's
Yep.
no worse than that.
Yep.
Buffalo, I'm just going to throw some teams out there and I'm just going to kind of say top 10, honestly, who I would put in there in no order. I put Buffalo in there then. Buffalo. Trying to think of each division and kind of give you a team, actually. I'd say I like your pick with the Colts the other day, but depends on who they get at quarterback. If they miss on a top quarterback, then
I think it'll be Wentz. That's my prediction for them.
I think it's Wentz or Luck. I do think the rumors for Luck coming back are decently positive.
I think so.
But if they miss on a quarterback and they end up with some like drafted guy or a older veteran, I don't consider them a top 10 team. They'll be struggling to even beat Houston. I think even when Watson leaves, that's still a decent team. You get a different quarterback in there. San Fran's too hard to pick against too because they have such a young team. They figure out their quarterback situation. And honestly, I don't know what number I'm exactly at, but another team I really want to make sure I put in the top 10 is the Chargers. The team's full of talent. If they can win games, like honestly, that team's so talented. Like defensively, offensively, quarterback, like they're one of the teams, and I hate to like root against them almost, not root against them, but point out they are one of those teams that has always been talented. They just can't figure out a way to win, no matter who their coach is.
Right.
You look back at the early days of Phillip Rivers to his entire career. They've always been a team that's like good, but not good enough to win.
Yeah.
And like I feel like this team is another one. Like I wish them the best, but until history doesn't repeat itself, then I don't know if they're going to win or not. But I'd like to see them win. They have talent to be a top 10 team.
You think the Saints are in there?
It depends on what happens with quarterback. I'm really not on that bandwagon with Taysom being that good. And I also don't think Jameis is that good either in that offense. But pieces around the quarterback are good.
Right.
I honestly look at the AFC West, like you said. I think Denver's even a top 15 team. Like whoever they have at quarterback is going to be the deciding factor on that too. And like you said, Cleveland's a pretty good team. Can't hate against them. Even Pittsburgh, I just think Big Ben's on the decline. I just think he's pretty much done.
Well, and Pittsburgh too, like we've been saying, they got cap issues too. Like they need to improve on stuff, and they don't really have the money to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think Burrow's still way too young. I don't know why. I like Herbert over him though. Like honestly, I think he's more ready to take over than. And also Cincinnati, you can't really blame him, but he doesn't have a lot of talent around him.
Yeah, I thought when he did play this year, though, he was good, though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying his talent around him is a lot less than the Chargers. Another bold move, in my opinion, or not really bold, but prediction for the Ravens, AJ Green.
That wouldn't
going to Baltimore, I wouldn't be surprised. I've heard a lot of people say that's such a Baltimore move to pick a veteran receiver, and then they can fill holes with other players.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I can see
And plus,
that.
he can get back at Cincinnati.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. You know, Mason, with power rankings, I love power rankings. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm all about the numbers and who's where, who's when, who's how, all that stuff. Tampa's number one. Gotta give them credit. They're the defending champs. I think they have one of the best rosters in the league, if not the best. Number two, I'd go Green Bay. You're coming off a season with an MVP. They have a lot of good young talent. Jair Alexander, Devontae Adams. We'll see what happens with Aaron Jones and Corey Linsley. That's going to be two big things that they need to get done. I think they'll get one of those two done, and I think they'll probably franchise tag the other one. That's what I've kind of been hearing. Green Bay doesn't usually use the franchise tag though, which is something that's interesting to me. Had to read up on the franchise tag last night for an article I wrote, but so yeah, Green Bay too, MVP Aaron Rodgers, good talented team. I thought they were the best team last year until Tampa beat them. Kansas City, everyone's like, Kansas City, they're gonna be back. They got Mahomes, they got Tyreek, they got Kelsey, they got Honey Badger. I mean, they got so much talent on the team. Get those two offensive linemen back healthy, and then they'll be back. Number four, I like Buffalo. I think Stephon Diggs is really taking that team to a whole nother level. Watched them a lot this year. They were one of the funnest teams to watch, not just because of Bills Mafia, and how great they are and, smashing tables and all that. But I like Buffalo. And then number five, I gotta go with Baltimore. I think they're a top five team going into next year. Now, I will say they're kind of like on the outside for me for the Super Bowl contenders right now, because I think they need a couple things to be in that Tampa Bay, Green Bay, Kansas City, Buffalo debate. Think they need a couple pieces. Number six, I'm gonna go with the Rams. Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Matthew Stafford. It's time to win. Like there are no excuses. The Rams got a quarterback. They got Sean McVay. Cam Akers came into his own last year. Number seven, I'm gonna go with the Colts. Because I think they're gonna get Wentz or Andrew Luck, like you were saying. Luck's either gonna come back or they're gonna get Wentz. I like the Colts. I think they're a good football team. And I really think, I'm seriously convinced if Andrew Luck was playing for the Colts wild card weekend against the Bills, that the Colts would have won that game. And number eight, I'm going to go with the San Francisco 49ers. Like you said, Mason, you can't take your eye off this team. You just can't. They got a
Yeah.
lot of good young talent. They got all their players back healthy. They're going to be a good team next year in the NFC. Number nine, Cleveland Browns. I think, Baker Mayfield starting to improve. I'm starting to see signs of him improving as a quarterback. His attitude's improving as well. Kevin Stefanski, I think that was a huge hire for them. Shout out to him for winning Coach of the Year. That was my pick to start the season. I got it right. And then number 10, I'm gonna go with the Saints. I just think, man, I think that with or without Drew, I think, Sean Payton and what he's been able to do. You talk about when they haven't had Drew Brees, they're like 10-2 or something
That's
in
fair.
the last 12 games. So I think they'll take a little bit of a step back, but they're still a good team. And obviously Seattle, the Chargers are on the outside, but that's my top 10. I think the top five is pretty clear cut. I think the top four for me right now are the Super Bowl favorites or contending favorites. Those are my top four. I would even switch Buffalo and the Rams after I see the Rams play a couple games. I just want to see how Stafford starts to look. But yeah, Mason, I think that it's going to be a really interesting season and it's going to be fun to watch. Um, I think football this season was a lot of fun, and I give credit. to the NFL for being able to make it happen. Because
True.
this year has been tough, man. And I think going into last off season, we kind of thought there was a possibility that there wasn't going to be a football season. When things shut down in March, I think a lot of people were like, "Is the NFL even going to happen?" And then April, May, June, still kind of the same thing. The COVID numbers were going crazy. They still are. Obviously, starting to get better, starting to get people vaccinated, get people healthy. So hopefully, we're on the right track to having another great NFL season. And I'll say it again on here. You guys have loved the Sunday shows this year, and I think that's made me love football even more. And even talking with the guys, I mean, talking with Mason, talking with Jake, talking with anybody about football, I think has just made it a lot of fun this season. And the fact that we had something that could take our mind off of everything that was going on, Mason, I'll let you add on to that. But I think this football season was great for us to have.
Agreed. Brett, I got an idea to throw you actually.
What's up, man?
I don't normally throw challenges out in conversation like this, but you should get your guys, any of your friends, to do a power ranking, right? Like within the next week. And see by next year's Super Bowl who is the most accurate power ranking.
Mason, that's a really good idea. We're gonna get that together.
Do all the play. Not, but make sure you do as a power ranking. I mean, like playoff teams, like the top playoff teams, who you think will be in the playoffs, essentially.
Okay.
So like the first, I can't think how many playoff teams there is, but it's like 12 or something. 14 now.
Yep, 14.
So the top 14 teams.
It's a really good idea.
Which, yes, is a little more complex because you got to pick divisional winners.
Right.
But I think that's a good idea. You can get, Jake and some of your other friends and just see who's the closest.
That's a really good idea, Mason. That's a really good idea. Shout out to Mason for the idea. You guys know
I just think it'd be a kind of a challenge in a roundabout way.
Heck yeah. And we're always looking for ideas. If I'm being serious, you guys, if you want to see something talked about, comment it down below. Say, hey, Dunk, hey Jake, we'd like to see this. Hey, hit us up on our Instagram. But hit us up. And also, guys, make sure to follow our social medias down below. We do a lot of good stuff on there, like polls and whatnot, and fun stuff. We do hype videos. Those are a lot of fun. Shout out to Mason for the last hype video idea. Pitched me that hype video idea with all the Super Bowl highlights and helped me out with which ones I should put in the video. Also, shout out to Kyle Gomez as well. I believe he helped Mason out on those. Make sure to follow Gomez on Twitch. He's a Twitch streamer. He does great work. And his streams are always a lot of fun. Make sure to follow Mason on Twitter, Gomez on Twitch. Make sure to follow our social media links. Subscribe to the channel, guys. I've been seeing that 50-50 of our view numbers are subscribers, 50%, and not subscribed is 50%. Let's get that number closer to like 80-20 for the one time. I would greatly appreciate it. Heck, maybe I'll do the ice bucket challenge in the freezing cold weather.
Yeah, bring that back.
You guys want to see that? I'll do the ice bucket challenge. If we hit 100 subscribers in a month and a half. So, if we hit 100 subscribers by March 26th, which is about like a month and a half.
Why don't you just do March 17th to start a free agency?
March 17th. All right, Mason. March 17th, 100 subscribers. And I will do the ice bucket challenge. And I will pick one of the coldest day of the week, which is probably a very bad idea. But I will pick a cold day of the week to do this at. And make sure you guys follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Huge shout out to Mason for dropping by and talking off season. As always, keep living life, keep striving for greatness, and make sure you guys keep putting in that work. Love seeing what everyone's doing, coming up with their own stuff. And also, hey, if anyone wants to be on the podcast, let us know. IG, Twitter, YouTube comments, anything like that. It's a great way. But y'all have a good night and peace out.